News at 7, headlines at 7:30. Oh, getting back now to our conversation with our analysts this morning, Kaya Sitole and Sandile Swana, and we're talking about some of the big stories. And of course, we discussed Steinhoff, and we are currently talking about Eskom, and there are a few other stories that we want to touch on as well. Well, Sandile, thanks so much. I know we kind of hijacked you right now, but these are important stories. So sticking with Eskom, and we spoke about the apology. We spoke about, what the possible reasons could be in the news there right now, talking about the Eskom and at least the minister saying that we won't immediately go on to stage 5 and 6 load shedding. But I guess at this point, everything is up in the air because we can start a day out on stage 2 load shedding and without notice we find ourselves on stage 4. So it wouldn't take us by surprise if we found ourselves on stage 6 at any given time. But with that said, again, the extent of the problem, because as we said, there have been some interventions. We've heard of people being added, committees being added, war rooms being established, but still it seems as though we don't quite know the extent of the problem. Or do we? Let me start with you, Kaya.
Look, I think the big problem, of course, is that when you have so many task teams and so many other structures that are all saying that they're trying to not only identify but also fix the problem, you end up with an accountability vacuum where one team thinks that, look, we've done our job, but let's wait for the second guys or the third guys to actually find out what it is that they think the issues are, and then go and present as solutions mixed together. So if you end up with that accountability vacuum, it really makes the decision-making process even more lethargic. So right now, if you have a board that says we think this is the way to go, but the minister and the president have already put a task team together that is supposed to try and figure out something else, you don't know at which stage that you must actually point a finger and say, this is the task team's responsibility or this is the board's responsibility. And for me, that is not helping in this particular situation. So also when you see a minister coming to address a press conference about what really ought to be operational matters, you then start asking yourself the question, is he now saying that the operations people, which are the executives, are not capable of explaining what the issues are? And if they're not capable of explaining what the issues are they really the right people for the job anyway? I do think that the guys that work at Eskom have got the best interests and the best intentions at heart, but that doesn't always translate to the most effective or the best suited person for managing a crisis of this nature.
Sandile Swana?
In the report by the minister, Pravin Gordhan, he highlighted that the technical task team will report within the next 10 days to 14 days about the nature of the problems and the extent of the problems at each power station. Now, then once those problems have been identified, you need to switch off the units, the generators that give us electricity, to fix them. Switch them on and off and test them. When you do that, you reduce the capacity to supply electricity. So that is the risk that I see clearly, that in the coming months, when these repairs are actually taking place, our capacity will be actually decreasing, and our demand, because we're going into winter, will actually be increasing. Because they used to do the repairs in summer. Now they are going to do the repairs in winter at peak demand. So that is why I was saying earlier on that load shedding at level 5 or 6 is not unthinkable. To my mind, it is entailed in the presentation of yesterday because of the simple fact that you are going to have to switch off these units and repair them. It is established that there are problems, there are leaks, there's all kinds of problems happening there, that some of those problems have not yet been quantified. They will be quantified in the next 10 to 14 days.
So I think there's consensus, it's common cause that there are problems, but do we know the extent of these problems?
Yes, the technical team does not know the extent of the problems at this stage. Within 2 weeks, they will know, they will submit the report. The minister, Pravin Gordhan, doesn't know the extent of the problems, nor the chairman, nor the CEO. They don't know the extent of the actual technical problems at the power stations.
That is very worrying because with all the energy, all the resources that have been put into trying to find solutions at Eskom, for us to sit here today on the 20th of March 2019 and still say we don't know the extent of the problem, Whew, that is worrying. Kaya?
Into the winter season, the big problem that we're going to face is the reality that the demand and the pressure on the grid will be accelerated. And as my fellow colleague rightfully said, the problem, of course, is that we still don't have a single person who can give you a single coherent explanation of exactly where we are, how we ended up here, and what it is that we need to do going forward. So in the absence of that one singular frontline figure who actually has a very holistic understanding of what the problems are, we literally have to keep praying that we can just be able to get at least 2 or 3 hours per day so we can be able to move on with our lives. And for the next few months, I think the situation will unfortunately have to get worse. If they do identify the problems and they have to take time to fix them, of course, those particular units have to be taken off the grid. And this will actually make the situation even more dire, because once you take them off the grid, it means that the pressure on the remaining units is also something that is going to be monumental. And given the fact that none of them are reliable at all, it simply means that stage 5 and stage 6 are going to be our new reality.
So, a final question, and this has to be about accountability once again. Obviously, there is a series of events that led us to this eventuality. How do we hold people accountable? Who should be held accountable? Let me start with you, Sandile.
I think when Thabo Mbeki apologized, he was holding the presidency accountable on his own to say, I am the president, me and my cabinet created this problem, and this problem has persisted. So to me, the state presidency, including this one of Cyril Ramaphosa, Zuma, and so on, that is where the accountability for this lies. For the simple fact that from 1995, we've been busy trying to solve this problem. And the last thing which I didn't say as we head towards the closure is that this thing is going to affect our water supplies. Our water supplies are transported by pumps that are electricity driven. So the reservoirs are going to start running low, and some suburbs are going to start lacking water.
And it's already happening in certain instances. Kaya?
Look, when we talk about accountability, I don't think a politician coming out and saying, oh yeah, we might have screwed up 10 years ago amounts to accountability for me. It's really the question of what we really have here is the fact that the politicians have sabotaged the country's security supply. They've compromised our ability to even run our economy. And when we talk about accountability, it has to go beyond just a press statement that says, oops, I'm as shocked as you are that we're heading into new load shedding. We are really talking here about a political party that is fully accountable for the fact that they've appointed people to run the state entity that are quite simply ill-suited for the purpose. We had a point in time where we thought Ben Gordhan was fit to run the board of Eskom. Ben Gordhan has never exhibited anything in any sphere for us to indicate that he has the capacity to run an entity of this nature. So, of course, when we talk about accountability, we need to start talking names. I'm not going to speak to abstract structures like the presidency or, a ministry. I need to say this particular individual was given a task, he was rewarded handsomely for doing that, and then he sabotaged the country. That is the person that has to pay the price for this.
Well, gentlemen, we could go on, but unfortunately we have to leave it there. Thank you so much to political analysts Kaya Sithole and Sandile Swana for talking to us about Eskom and about Steinhoff, those sagas. And maybe we'll get them back later in the week or at another time to talk about some of the other major stories as well. We're going to take a break, and on the other side of that,